and gentlemen, I promise you guys, I am not drunk. It's my new teeth. But welcome to another pest guide. My wonderful colleague here, Jeff, from First Response Pest Control, and myself are going to give you the lowdown on. In fact, actually, I'm not going to tell you what we're going to talk about. Let me actually give you a little story. Let's start off with a story, Jeff. Shall we do that?
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to give you so when I was in the British military, I get called out, and I did entomology and things. I get called out. I don't even know if I shared this story with you before. I might have done, Jeff, but I get called out to one of our silos or something, some of that we stored some stuff in, and this was for the catering corps, and the catering corps obviously brought food in from all over the world and places like that. And we had gone, and they had seen this spider that was big, and that was nothing like it had ever been seen before in the UK, and we should go and inspect it. So we went over, and we found out, and we found out very quickly that what we had was a Brazilian wandering spider that had come over in the banana leaves and the banana trees and had actually gotten in. Now, you and I both know, Jeff, the Brazilian wandering spider is the most lethal spider in the world, next to the funnel web in Australia.
Right.
So, guys, if you're listening to this story, this is what we are talking about tonight. We're going into spiders. The scariest thing, but the beautiful thing about them as well. I'm fascinated with spiders. I love them.
I've always been too.
Exactly. And so this is what, and obviously where you are, Jeff, we've got spiders. And it's the season.
We've got one heck of a run of so many different sorts, and of course, almost everybody automatically assumes every single spider is a black widow because that's the one we worry about out here. And I tell people, even if you do have a few of the widows, black widows, brown widows, we're kind of spoiled. We don't have the recluse like other parts of the country does. We don't have, like you mentioned, those Brazilian spiders and those Australian spiders that are downright lethal. And so I always try to calm them and tell them, hey, listen, they are part of the natural ecosystem here. They're to be expected. We're going to see them because we moved into their turf, really. They've lived here a lot longer than we have.
Absolutely. And they are fascinating. And the great thing is, Jeff, is that, because we're fascinated with them, they are great for our ecosystem. They keep other pests down and everything else, but they can become a problem. And so we're going to let's you and I bust a few spider myths as well, and we'll kind of talk about that. So myth number one, they don't come in our house at winter, do they?
They really don't. No. They're pretty content being outside during the winter. I've noticed more people having problems with them coming in during the summer, and it gets 111, 115 out here in the high desert. So I understand when it's 111, 115, I don't want to be outside either. It's too freaking hot. So,
exactly.
People, they ask, why are they in here? Why are they coming in the house? I said, well, they're getting cooked out there.
and one of the things I'll also say, Jeff, is that when people see them in the winter in the cooler weather, it's actually because they're in the house themselves a lot more.
Yes.
Because it's cooler, they're not out in the summer enjoying themselves like they are. And so
the
spiders will come in anyway if they can get in. And it's not because they're trying to overwinter. Relatively, and here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to freak you all out, but, there is a documentary, this was many years ago, about when you're sleeping, the bugs that actually are around your house. And this is one of the reasons why we espouse that it's why you should have regular pest control, because we keep that down. You don't want these spiders and things coming in because they hunt at night.
They do. Yeah, a lot of them do.
At night.
They
and
do.
If you're lying in your bed and you've got a spider issue there. Now, great, as you said, Jeff, we don't have the brown recluse in California, but we do have widows. We do have tarantulas. We do have the garden spiders. And I think we got wolf spiders as well, don't we?
We do get the wolf spider, absolutely.
And that's quite a big boy.
They can get rather large. Not quite as big as the tarantulas. And I'll tell you, I knew when a customer's seen a tarantula because, oh boy, they tell me about it. That's a big event, and I understand it's intimidating. It's a large, hairy spider. I mean, it's spiders creep people out in
They do.
general, but then you see one that's big and hairy, and then you think, wow, that's rather intimidating. But we've sat and watched one walk down a hill and take a drink out of a frisbee that was turned upside down that caught some of the sprinkler water, and then walk back up the hill peacefully. And we've also seen the tarantula hawk wasp that goes after them. That's somebody you don't really want to contend with either. But they're here, so that's another way we have tarantulas, because you'll see something you thought was a hummingbird. What was that? Oh, tarantula hawk. Oh, there might be tarantula around. Yep, they're around. We have scorpions. Speaking of different types of arachnid, and every once in a while, especially up here in the high desert, I'll get that call. Oh my gosh, I found a scorpion. Should I worry? Well, one scorpion here and there isn't too odd, but if you're getting a barrage of them, then we want to take a closer look.
And many people also they misidentify scorpions as spiders as well, because they are arachnids, and if you see them from a distance, and they're night hunters as well. They're kind of,
they really are. Yep.
And so here's the other thing that we want. Let's talk about, Jeff. You and I have talked about this before, but people need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, when you're dealing with spiders and you may have a spider infestation in your home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a one and done job. You can't just spray and they're gone. They're always going to come back, which is why it's you need to keep it up regularly. And let's explain to them, Jeff, why that is, because their bodies, and over you as the expert, but it doesn't touch them, does it?
Right, and I've told a lot of people this. The service that you get done in December is every bit as important as the service that gets done for you in June, and keeping those perimeters up. But also having somebody show up who can inspect around and see something, if it's really starting to get out of hand, makes a big difference. So it may not seem like much to most people, but what we're trained for and what we're out there doing is we're trying to spot these issues and get out in front of them as best we can. I'll tell you, this year's been a doozy. There's been a very large uptick in activity, and it really goes back to, we had such a wet winter, and that made their food sources rather abundant. Well, it made vegetation abundant, and then of course, as you know, everything up the eco chain. And what do spiders eat? They love the moths and the flies and the gnats. But when
we've had an abundance of them.
Oh, such an abundance. So of course, with food so abundant, what are they going to do? They're going to breed more, and they did. And we've had just a barrage, a big wave of them sailing in on the wind, and really, just coming through, in stereo, and definitely showing up. So our regular clients who've been on for several years, we enjoyed a relatively mild summer last year and the year before, so we were kind of spoiled. So we had all that rain, and then we got hit with, oh gosh, I want to say about a 7-week straight heat wave that didn't let up, and it was 100 plus every day. Then we get heat waves where it's up over 100, maybe in the 110, 110s range, every so often. But this year we hovered quite high in temps on the tail of a very wet winter. So as you know, that meant not only a lot more spiders, but we boosted big time on mosquitoes. And of course, that's another thing the spiders love to eat is mosquitoes. Any little
they
flying
love the mosquitoes,
insect.
and there's an abundance.
Yes, and there's abundance. Yeah.
And so here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, is when we spray for spiders, that it's when we're taking them down, taking the webs down, getting rid of them, identifying the places, and treating for them. Yes, there'll be some contact insecticide that will take them out, but also there's not everything that happens. It doesn't. The type of bodies that they are with the thorax and the way that their legs and everything else, it doesn't affect them as much. And so you do have them coming back. And so here's the thing: when you knock a web down, it's futile. You're phoning us up and says, "We knocked the web down. It's back up again." Hello.
Right.
That's what spiders do. They will go back and they will do it, and they will make them up. And this is just nature. You can't can't screw around with it. It's going to happen. This is why you need to be diligent and you need to keep on at it and you need to be. And this is why we have certain times of the year where we're proactive. And this season we need to be more proactive because, as you know, as you were saying, Jeff.
Yes.
We've had a doozy, and we've had. I mean, we've had a mass influx, of spiders.
Yes. Big time.
And you know, and rightly so. Let's talk about the black widow because, all right, you know, they are the dangerous species that's here. We also have brown widow, false widow, and people think everything's a black widow, but they really should understand that black widows are dangerous. They do come in the home from time to time, but they prefer rock beds and everything outside. And so it's important that you look from pest control from the inside of the home and the outside of the home, because if you have the perfect conditions for any pest, shelter, food, and water, they're going to survive and thrive.
They're going to survive and thrive. And that's what I always tell people, you know, and it's amazing to me how, you know, I've seen the progression where somebody at first they get a little worried and, you know, rightfully so. Oh my gosh, I'm finding a lot of spiders. Well, I always ask the question, what were you doing when you found the spiders? Yeah. Well, we were cleaning, we were moving furniture around, we were making sure that everything was clean behind things and underneath things. And I said, that's where you found them, right? Hiding behind and underneath. And they said, yes. And I said, well, that's good. You're doing a good job on normal routine maintenance. And that's a good habit to have. And then I said, so in essence, you're teaming up with me because let me ask, what did you do? They said, well, we just vacuumed them up. I said, perfect. That's one way to deal with them. I said, you know, they may have just gotten in. They probably weren't inside for a very long time. And what we do know on our end about the chemistry is they're not going to absorb it the same as you know, like a bug might. But they do get it into their system eventually. And, you know, a lot of times it's through ingestion. So when they go to clean themselves, they use their mouth parts. And when they do that, they ingest the product.
And also, one of the things is when they've caught their prey and
they're
digesting their prey and they're actually cocooning their prey as well. A lot of the contact insecticide that we have on them sometimes actually transfers and then can be ingested into them.
Thought we had an outage there for a moment.
Oh, did we? Oh, yeah, it could possibly be. Yeah, I was actually saying that sometimes when they've caught their prey, that's another way that the insecticide can actually transfer onto them as well.
Absolutely, yeah, because it's already on the insect that they've caught, and so that works absolutely well.
And that's why it's really important. So let's talk a little bit about the dangers of the black widow, so people understand it, and let's give them, Jeff, let's give them an outline of the black widow, and so that they understand that not everything they look at with 8 legs is a black widow.
Right. So a black widow, a lot of times you're going to find, I've seen, they love to hang upside down. And because they love to hang upside down, you're going to be looking for a little red hourglass shaped marking on the underside. That's a big way to know for sure that you're dealing with a widow spider, whether black or brown. That marking is pretty signature to that type of spider.
On the underside of the abdomen.
And of course, you need to take the proper precautions. Of course, as pest guys, we wear gloves when we're working sometimes. So we'll just grab it with a gloved hand because we know they're not going to get us through the gloves. So people say, oh, my God, you just snatched that up. Well, yeah, I'm wearing gloves. You know, of course, I don't mind just snatching it up by hand.
And here's another myth, ladies and gentlemen, we want to tell you as well, that if a spider's on you, right, it doesn't want to bite you.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Unless it's hunting. And unless it's hunting and it's going for prey and it's with its eyes and it's, you know, definitely, you know, it's the way that it is, it's it's hunting and it knows it's going to attack. Now, when it's on us, right, the spider is not necessarily going to bite. The only reason that and especially with the black widow, it's the female black widow that we're talking about. The only reason that they'll bite is when they feel pressure from their cephalothorax or their body pushing down. They feel threatened and then they bite. So when they're in your shoe or when they're in your bed
Yes.
that's when they feel the pressure, and that's when they'll bite, and they're biting to save themselves. It's a natural
It's a
defense
defense
response.
mechanism. Yeah, that's all it really is, you know. And I've had people say, "Oh, I'm being bit up by spiders," and I go, all the time. I say, "Well, no, I don't think spiders are attacking you." I said, "I
No,
understand you may feel that they are, but that's probably not spiders." And then of course they say, "Well, it's when I'm here, when I'm there, I notice a lot of bites on me," and I tell them, "Well,
bed bugs.
yeah, bed bugs, maybe, so maybe we could look at that." And then I said, well, have you considered it might be mosquitoes? They're sneaky and they're small, and you usually won't see them, but you'll feel the bite later, and it itches, and it really drives you crazy. And
Does.
yeah, mosquito bites are the worst, because they just won't stop itching. And then of course you want to scratch them, but you don't want to scratch them because you can get an infection. So I've had people say, maybe you're right. Maybe it is a mosquito problem. And those same people, and when I go ahead and I treat, and okay, well, this should help. If there's any spiders hanging around, this is going to help kind of mitigate and minimize them. And they say, oh my gosh, I'm still getting bit up. Then like you said, bed bug inspection. Okay, well, we've ruled out bed bugs.
Yeah.
There's no bed bugs here. It's not spiders. Then they say, well, maybe it's fleas. And I go, well, let's do a quick test for fleas. Let's. Oh, you've got a dog. You've got a cat. Have they been scratching? Well, no, they're not scratching. I go, well, if you had fleas, they'd be on your animal for sure. So let's get a white towel. Let's set it down where you think there's fleas. Maybe the pet bedding, maybe the couch, where you're thinking you're getting bit. Set down a little.
Yeah.
It's got to be a real, plain white towel or a plain white T-shirt,
Yeah.
and just wait to see if any little black, dots hop onto it, and then you'll know if there's fleas. We rule that out. Then I say, hey, there may be a mosquito problem. Well, how do you know? And I said, well, your neighbors right around the corner have just set up mosquito service because they were being bit up by mosquitoes. So
That's what you've
I
got.
think maybe locally there could be a source,
And
and
let's face it, if there's loads of mosquitoes, there's loads of spiders.
there's going to be loads of spiders. Yes, absolutely. Or another one I've noticed too is if there's loads of roaches, if there's loads of ants, also
Spiders.
loads of spiders,
Yeah.
because these guys got to eat too,
And that's the thing. And this is the
Yeah.
thing you want to think about, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you've got pests around, and this is why it's important, this is why Jeff and I can't stress enough, it is important to keep regular pest control up, because it's not
Yes.
just about the spider, it's not just about the mosquito or the fleas, it's about the whole plethora of pests,
That's
right?
right.
We have, because they're in an ecosystem where they're feeding. And the
That's true.
spiders feed on the mosquitoes, and the spiders feed on the roaches, and the spiders feed on it, and vice versa. The bed bugs are feeding on. They're all in this ecosystem, and so
They're
that you
all in
can't
this
just think,
ecosystem.
"Well, spray and it's done." You've got to keep it going.
You've got keep it going, and I'll tell you, I have noticed, and it's just you make these observations in the field as a technician when you're out there. You take note of different conditions and different things you notice are going on. So one of the big ones I've noticed out there is somebody who's on mosquito service has a lot less spiders. It's just
Yeah,
I can say as a general rule of thumb, all the mosquito clients have less spiders on their property. There's other factors if they've got a lot of foliage, trees, especially oaks. Oh my goodness, when you have oaks, you have spiders. But and people that I have on service that are in those areas, they know.
yeah, and we've got so many different species of spiders in California that, I mean, really could give you a whole list of them. It's crazy because there's so many of them. But one of the things, ladies and gentlemen, is that you've got to be proactive with your spider control and think of it more as it's covering all bases.
Keep working.
When we are treating for spiders, we're also treating for other pests as well. So the
All
other
right.
thing I want to talk about is that the bites of the black widow, because people are fearing them the most. So let's talk
They
about
really
that.
are.
The bites for an adult, we can deal with them unless you get an allergic reaction. But
That's
let's
correct.
talk about if you have children, Jeff. That's probably one thing that everybody needs to know about.
That one's a doozy, and that's why I let people know all the time. I could have just treated your yard, you've done a thorough job, all of the perimeters, brushed down all the cobwebs, everything's looking good. We're at a nice reset, but you go out a couple hours later and you go to sit on patio furniture. inspect it. You've got your kids playing in the yards. You know, they're going to go pick up and play with their plastic yard toys. They're going to get in the little plastic playhouse or even the wooden one, the play set that you built with the swing and the slide and, all that fun stuff. And I see those all the time in the yard. Um, Give it a quick look over and maybe get your kids on the same page that they know that's not one that you want to play with. That's not, exactly like picking up a roly poly or, an earwig, something harmless like that. These guys can be a problem. So, maybe they don't handle them barehanded. Maybe they tell, an adult, oh, hey, I found this. Okay, then you can go deal with it, and I always tell them, a gloved hand, you're fine. Put on a gardening glove.
And also to realize, ladies and gentlemen, that it's not so dangerous to you as an adult, again, as I mentioned, unless you have an anaphylaxis or something. But with
That's
your
correct.
children, this is why it's important that you really
Right.
take it seriously, because your child can get they're smaller, their physiology smaller, their biology smaller, and that venom, that
It,
toxic venom, can affect them quicker than it would an adult. So it's
and being a
important that
neurotoxin, it
the
hits them,
neurotoxin,
different.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and that neurotoxin attacks the muscles in the blood,
Yes.
and so that's what they need to understand, that they're being proactive. Investing in pest control is
Yes.
investing in your family's protection.
And it's just one in an arsenal of tools you have. And I always taken the approach that a good service comes with not only the treatment, not only the recommendation, not only catching up, how's things, did you catch the game? All that fun conversation, but I like to have the conversations that are meaningful as well, and I like to set them up for success. When I tell them,
Yeah.
go out there and give everything a good looking over. Maybe I've got some people that are really gung ho. They team up. They say, I take a broom and I brush down the webs in between. Because they do come back rather rapidly, and I like
They
my
do.
yard to look nice. And I said, you know what? Keep doing that. The more you
Yes.
do that, and we do that as a team, the more that it's going to help mitigate everything. And
Perfect.
so, yeah, it's really the teamwork makes the dream work, especially when it comes to spiders. And
Yes.
they're going to blow in on that wind. They kite in, they balloon in, and people, they're astounded when I tell them that. They said, "Oh, I didn't even know that's how they get here." And I said, "Yeah, they don't walk. They kite, they balloon." I said, there's a few species, of course, that walk. The wolf spiders kind of tend to run, but
Yeah.
everybody else they kind of take the easy way and zip line in.
And I would also say, Jeff, is not to frighten anybody out there as well, is that, like you said, the teamwork is a dream work, and the
Yes,
fact that you're working with your clients as a team and you're working together, keeping it down. But I would
yeah,
also urge people as well, is just because you're being proactive doesn't mean that the local business is being proactive. So remember that
true.
when you're buying produce or from a farm store or anything like that, and even some of the big stores, right? Make
Yes,
sure that you check the boxes that you're buying before. Be careful what you're doing. Make sure that you
yes,
check the produce. And I'll tell you another story in a minute. Check the produce, because you want to make sure that
yes.
um, there's not maybe some other spider from an exotic country. That is
That's right.
possible. It happens, right?
It happens. Yeah, not
And there's
everything is
not.
grown right up the street. Even the farmers market, they sell
Yeah.
bananas, but they can't grow bananas here. They
No.
just don't have the climate for it.
No, and so they bring them in, and so you've got the
Yeah,
potential of bringing in a toxic, a venomous spider.
that's right.
And so we need to be aware of that. And of course, here's the other thing, ladies and gentlemen. You may have what you don't think about, and this is something that we've talked about a lot. Is um, Jeff and I, we talk about where there may be a house that's had a roach infestation, and you deal with it, and boxes have been moved. Now, let's say boxes have been moved from there, and
Yes,
you bring them into the house, and you possibly have a roach infestation that happens there. You get spiders come in, but the potential of spiders even traveling in that box, whether it's a black widow or another type of spider with a nest. Here's
yes,
the other thing and I'll jump onto that in a minute. There's a potential that you could bring in a nest, or you could bring in spiders from somewhere else. So be careful even when you're
Yes.
buying used products, when you're buying a used appliance. It's not just about, we did an article on our blog recently about appliances and cockroaches, but remember that also goes to
Yes.
spiders, right?
That's right.
And the
It
other
really
thing is, let's
does.
talk about so that they know, and we'll finish off with a couple of good stories, but let's talk about the nests, the eggs of
Oh, yes.
black widows, because that's a good one for them to recognize.
That is a good one, and you know it's an easy one to spot. When you spot it, you'll know you've spotted it. And if it's a black widow, it's a smooth and it's round and it's in that web, and they're guarding it a lot of times because that's all their offspring. So they want to ensure their offspring have a chance. So they're watching it. Now, what was interesting to me was the first time I saw one that looked like it had little splines sticking off of it, almost kind of like the seed of that one tree that falls down and you get stuck in your foot at. Gosh, I can't even remember the name of it, but you know which
Yeah,
one I'm talking about.
yeah.
And I saw that and I said that looks just like a widow sac, but different. And then of course what was guarding it? Oh, what came out? That's not a black widow. What do we have here? Oh wow, it's like a black widow but brown. And the egg sac looks similar, but it's got all these little spines sticking off of it, almost like a that medieval weapon, the mace,
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of looks
yeah.
like the ball end of that, and but also white, it's all wrapped in the same silk, and yeah, you can recognize those. And inside are a ton of little offspring, just waiting to come out, and now when they do, they spread out to the four winds. And when they say that, it's not just a saying, but spiders are that way. Once they're born into existence, they go all over, everywhere, so they just
Everywhere.
scatter. Yeah,
And they don't fly, but they get carried on breezes. They get
they
carried on
do.
the wind and
Carried on the
the
wind, they
webs
balloon,
and
they
stuff.
kite, and they
And
just go off and they start new lives for themselves. And
that's it.
if you have that egg sac open up, you have a whole bunch that didn't make it far, so they're
I
to
would
the four
frighten
corners
you.
of your property.
And sometimes you can
Yeah,
actually see the young actually clinging on to the mother as well, which you can see that
you can.
when they.
Definitely in the
And
case
so
of wolf
think
spiders.
when you're looking at these edge cracks, ladies and gentlemen, just think golf ball.
It is, yeah. It's like about like that.
Exactly like a golf ball. Well,
Yeah.
Jeff, let's finish off, but let's finish. And I'll tell a story of my my days. But
Yes.
what's the worst story you've had of any spider infestation or even spider bite that maybe you've dealt with in your
So that
career?
I've been bit by a few different things out there. Of course, it's an occupational hazard. So,
Yeah,
picked up a couple of widow bites, maybe not being as cautious as I should have been. And, of course, that neurotoxin to grown up is not fun. I mean, it's kind of like you feel like you're coming down with the flu for a couple days. That's the best description. And I didn't have any kind of allergic reaction. So I just felt, at the bite site, of course it itches, but no difference than a
yeah.
mosquito bite. A little bit of a welt. It raises. It gets hot, but you just felt real low energy, real like you're coming down with the flu, kind of, and that's the best way to describe it. It wasn't, too horrible. I was still at work, just kind of not moving as quickly as I normally would, and not, getting things done as um, fervently as I normally would, just kind of low energy. That's probably the worst I've had as far as, but I've had stings that were far worse from stinging
Yeah.
insects, definitely. But I went to a house that had been vacant for, oh gosh, I want to say about 2 years. And what had happened was the person that owned it had passed, and their nearest relative was their son, who came all the way up from 2 counties away,
Yeah.
and made a point of meeting up with us there and everything, and just said, listen, I'm going to start going through all this stuff, but this house is just loaded with spiders, and I don't know how many
Wow.
of them are widows. I don't know how many of them are benign, different various types of spiders,
Wow.
but we went through, and because it was a hoarder's place, there was just walkways that you could get through, and so not a whole lot of room to get around. So the best thing we could do for a fast knockdown in there was to, basically we called on some help from a friend and borrowed a fogger, and just went through and fogged it, and told him, hey, give it a few hours for everything to dissipate, and then you're okay, you're good to go. So we gave him a reentry time, and of course, he called after the reentry time and he says, I can't believe what a night and day difference you guys have made. He goes, now I can get in here and I can sort through things because you dropped all the spiders in here. And I said, sure thing,
Wow.
not a problem. Glad to help. This was years back, but
Wow.
I mean, it was even walking through it with a respirator mask, with a fogging machine and a directed fogging machine, more like a almost like a backpack fogger you'd use for mosquito
Yeah, we had
work.
them in the army, actually, the swing foggers.
Yeah, and we just walked through the house and just basically directed fog everywhere. Had our respirators on. It started at the furthest end and worked our way back and out. But I can tell you, there were every stripe of spider. We saw cat face spiders, we saw cellar spiders, we saw wolf spiders, we saw black widows, brown widows in that house. Everything was just covered in a layer of webs and
Can you
spider
imagine the
silk. And
rest of the pests that were there?
oh, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. And it's funny. I was imagining until he got with us and explained. Hey, when we finally got down to the bottom of this, there were ants. There were some of the outdoor roaches had gotten in and
Oh, jeez.
just died underneath things and
Oh,
you name it. There was a whole lot of things and. But he said, but the big one was the spiders because the spiders really creeped him out, and so we did that knowing that nobody was there. It wasn't occupied, no people, no pets. So we figured, hey, why not? We can get away with it. So we did, and it was a legal application, and of course, and everything. But the stipulation, of course, is you can't be in here
yeah, yeah.
until enough time has passed. But he
Yeah.
says, thank you so much for knocking down. On the exterior, we just sprayed, and used the backpack sprayer, just regular flow zone, hit all the perimeters, and just brushed all the webs and all the spiders down into our perimeters that we treated. And that made a huge difference on the exterior. But I mean, just the front patio, when you walk up to the front door, had kind of an overhang. Actually, would look really nice if it weren't so infested with
With
spiders.
spiders.
Right. So, and he said even outside where you just used the backpack sprayer and sprayed the regular products, he said night and day difference. Thank you so much. And he goes, I think a lot of it had to do with you brushing down the webs. And he goes, but man, now I can get in here. I can sort through all my mom's old stuff and figure out what's what and stuff. So he gave us a glowing review and everything. But yeah, it was one of those. We didn't have a fogger on hand, so we called up a colleague and said,
Wow.
hey. Can I borrow your fogger?
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
that okay? What are you running in it? We'll run the same product. Are you okay with that? And they said, yeah, no problem. Anytime you need, you can borrow it. And we didn't have one, so we just went ahead and did that. Just because I said, how are we going to help this guy? What can we really do? Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. I will I can't top that because I can as you're talking, I'm visualizing it and I'm thinking, do you remember the Pickers? I don't know if you watched the Pickers on.
Oh yeah, good show.
I watched that and I'm like, man, do you imagine the spiders that are in there? Oh my god! And
Oh
there was
gosh.
one episode where they were
Yeah.
like you're saying, the house was. I mean, literally, it was planks that you were walking down. It was so
Right.
littered with stuff and crap. One man's
Oh
crap's
yeah.
another man's treasure, or so they say.
Oh yeah.
But imagine, I was like, oh my god, the pests that are in there, the spiders that are in there, and God, they're
Right.
just gonna be crazy.
Well, I will say, some of the things I scoped out while I was in that house. I think the son probably inherited a gold mine because she had
Yeah.
like every single issue of Time magazine going back for decades.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So that
Fortune.
was, probably worth a fortune because, to just have each, art, or, I mean, each issue, I think they'll come out monthly, but she had stacks and stacks of them in boxes, protected nice and in bins and stuff. But
Wow.
so I thought, wow, she really, and she probably read all of them, I'm sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then saved them, just so that she'd have it to look back on or, refer back to. But I mean, going back decades and, I don't know how old she was when she passed, but it's little things like that I noticed. And then just collectibles and things up on the shelves and stuff. But she definitely didn't get rid of much. And so it was very, I want to say organized, but very cluttered at the
Right.
same time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And
Yeah.
so he probably got a fortune out of it.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. He probably found all kinds of things that he didn't even know she had.
Well, Jeff, this has been another amazing conversation. I love doing these guides. It's a great idea and it helps so many people. So let's give some, as we finish off, before I go into a final story from myself,
Yes.
let's give our people out there that are listening, let's give them some quick tips that they can have. We're going into the season. Obviously, we want them to call us if they see any pests
Yes.
or any spiders, but give them some tips because you're working with them as a team. Let's give them some hard hitting tips right now that they can
Oh,
do.
absolutely. I tell people all the time, if they do it or if they've got a landscaper that does it, doesn't matter, but keeping the hedges neat and clean, blowing all the leaves out from underneath, not just for spiders, but for a slew of other pests. I mean, your earwigs and stuff can accumulate. And then, of course, the spiders will just follow suit. If there's other
Yeah.
bugs there, that's the spider's food. So, of course, the spider wants to set up shop where he's going to have the best chow. So, keeping it neat, keeping it clean, having, foliage around is fine. Trees, shrubs, no problem, but keep them really well manicured. That's a big one. Every now and again, I get across, somebody's got some old junk. And where do they normally store their old junk? Down one side of the house, the side of the yard that nobody really ever uses, but they stack it right up against the house 9 times out of 10. And then, you look and it's like, well, that's awful close to a window. Well, we know that they'll go in the bottom of the window frame with the weep holes and just come up the window track. And now they're in the house and they go, gee, I don't know how I'm getting all these spiders in the house. So we do a little inspecting around. Oh, all these ply boards that you've got stacked up over here or these old paint cans. Could we maybe move them over closer to the wall and away from the wall of the house? Can we look at, do you need any of this stuff? Can some of it be disposed of? Some places you go to, you see it right off the bat. And it's like, oh, this is a nice harborage. If I was a spider, I'd probably set up shop right here, and anything flying by, I'll get caught up in my webs and stuff. But what if I'm not catching anything? Well, then I'll maybe go venture inside to see if there's more flies there, because that's what they do. It's just a natural thing. Am I catching anything here?
Yeah.
No, I'll go over here and try and set up shop over here. And one spider, we've watched it, we've seen it, because we're fascinated with it. But one spider might be managing, 4 or 5 different webs, and then just make the rotation between them to see, did I catch anything over here? Did I catch anything over there? And we've seen that, and we've seen it in the documentary, but we see it out in the field too, where you're like, web but no spider. Okay, oh well, he's probably over here on this web, and so he's just set up a second location because he's, hey, let's see if we catch anything on this side, and they do that as well. So yeah, I mean, just really keeping things tidy, keeping things clean really helps cut down. And then, like I mentioned before, if you see, the webs are getting on your nerves, definitely brush them with a broom.
Yeah.
And one thing I've had people do, I like to think my eyes work pretty well, but then again, I'm not a young guy. And, sometimes these webs are hard to spot. And so I may feel like I've done a really good job knocking down all the webs on a place. But I always tell people, I say, if there's certain ones in certain spots and they're really important to you, give us the heads up. You get a reminder a couple of days before we're coming out. Easy enough to just shoot us a text or an email and say, hey, listen, when you come out, there's these couple of spots I really need some attention paid. Because, sometimes they rely on us to just find it. And we do most of the time. Because that's what we're trained to do. But there's times where I might miss a web, and it's, out of all the other webs I got, I missed the one web that was the most important to a person, and they call irate afterwards, and they go, I can't believe you missed the one web. And I'm like, oh man, there's webs over here, there was webs over there. I got all those, but I missed the one that was most important. Gosh, will you do me a solid? Get a broom, knock it down this time. It might come back right away. I know you're probably going to get mad, but next time, just let me know beforehand which ones are most important to you. And then, I'll do what I can to try and help mitigate or minimize that.
And realize, ladies and gentlemen, that webs come back all the time.
They really do. And that's even with product there.
Yeah, we're working as a team.
Really?
So that's the main thing to understand. So give us a call. You want to start, if you haven't got pest control now, this is the time to start it. You even starting it now through the winter is getting you ready for next summer, next spring.
That's right. You're setting the stage for
keep
success.
it on going. It's a very low cost investment, ladies and gentlemen. So get in touch with us at firstresponcepc.com. That's First Response Pest Control. contact Ash in the office. She will get you booked in. We'll come out and inspect it for you, and we will make sure that you are spiderless. And I say that in two ways: spiderless,
Yes.
rather than spiderless.
Right. Well,
That's
yeah, exactly.
important.
And that's what I always tell people. You're going to get a big, massive reduction, but don't expect them to
Absolutely.
go away completely. They do serve a purpose and they are part of the ecosystem. So, and we have to walk in line with an ecological balance. And remember, we're in the state of California, so it's very, 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 very environmentalist driven as to what we can get away with doing and can't get away with doing out here. So we have to walk that fine line so that the authorities that we answer to are satisfied that we're not doing any ecological damage.
And I'm going to leave you with a final story of someone I met in Florida, ladies and gentlemen. And this is just jumping on exactly from the story that Jeff had told you all about his with the collector. Now, I met a gentleman many years ago in Florida when I was visiting Florida. And I noticed that he had a big sore and a weep on his leg. And I was doing a little bit of business with this person. I said to him, I said, that looks like a potential insect that you've come up against. And he says, Jock, actually it was. And I said, what is it? And he opened up and he took out, and here's the thing you want to be careful of, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I know we don't have brown recluses, but there's no saying that you're not going to get them, because
it's true.
Spiders are migrating and they get over. They came from Asia.
Yes.
And they came, and they're in Georgia, they're in North Carolina, they're in South Carolina, they're in North Carolina. They do migrate, so they'll get. There's no saying that they won't come to California. So you need to be aware. Now, this gentleman showed me his sword, and I'm not joking. Half of his calf had gone. It was literally just eaten away with the necrotizing. And I said, "What happened?" He said, "I got bit by a brown recluse."
Yeah.
Two bites or whatever it was. So he invited me and he says, look, I was coming to have a meeting, and he says to me, come to my house and we'll have a chat. Yeah. And this is about a bit of business. And I went, okay, no problem. So I went to his house, and there's no wonder that he got bit, because the house was so cluttered. And brown recluse like to be in dark areas, in boxes and stuff like that. And that's where he had them. And he was just lying in his bed at night when he got bit on the leg, because his stuff was full of crap everywhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is so important that you don't have so much clutter. There's a reason that you shouldn't have all that clutter around you. Not only just for your health concerns, but pest concerns as well, and also keeping the area clean and tidy. If you have got a lot of crap up against your wall, as Jeff was saying, chances are you're going to get spiders. If you've got a lot of crap in your house, in your garage and everything else, chances are you're going to get spiders. Be aware, there are spiders that are dangerous. And while we don't have brown recluses now, look at the damage that happened to that gentleman. And I'll tell you something else, ladies and gentlemen. He lost his business. Do you know how he lost his business? I don't think I told you this, Jeff. He went bankrupt because of the medical bills that he had to deal with the spider bites.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, when you're investing a small amount each month for pest control, that's insurance.
It really is. It's one tool in an arsenal of so many tools. So, why not take advantage of everything available? And that's what I always say. So, having somebody on your side, an expert, a pro who knows what they're talking about,
Brilliant.
and then, you've got somebody on speed dial. You can say, hey, what about this? What about that? Hey, ask the question.
That's what it is.
We love answering those questions because we feel like we're helping somebody gain the knowledge they need, setting somebody up for success. So, it's a good feeling when they take in what we know and they implement it.
It is. It's education.
It's just, it really helps.
It's perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight. We lost a little bit of signal there. We'll have to do a bit of editing, but we're glad. Now, join us. For you guys that are out there in our area in California, all you business owners that have got businesses, Next week, we've got a really important guide for you guys because we're talking primarily about business pest control and what you should know, what you
Yes.
should look out. So make sure you join Jeff and I next week when we bring this out. This is your spider guide. Be sure to contact us. Ask us any questions, and
Yes.
make sure that you keep proactive and understand that they're going to keep coming back all the time, right? We need to be
They really will.
proactive regularly. So thanks for joining us. Jeff, it's been awesome. I love having our chats and helping everybody out.
Yes.
This is really great. I look forward to our next one, and I shall catch you on the flip side, brother.
All right. Sounds great.